This is Damian Macy, the Friends of the Marshall Public Library. As a part of our oral history project, I have today, on September the 18th, Jessie Cruz, who is a part of our community and has been for quite some time. Here's here to tell your story.
Yes, and I do want to say I'm so excited that you guys have restarted these up again after COVID, because I've listened to a lot of them. A lot of times, if I can't sleep at night, I'll listen to the interviews, and it's just so fun to hear the voices of people that meant so much to you.
I didn't realize we put you to sleep.
Well, sometimes they do put me to sleep, but that's a good thing. But I really do enjoy that, and so I'm very honored to be asked.
We'd like to have you.
So, I grew up here in Marshall. I grew up about 2 miles southeast of town, out by the rock quarry, on our family farm. And my mom and dad were Guy and Helen Welch Tingley. And my dad was a farmer. He worked mainly out of the Union in Terre Haute, but also worked for Johnny Snedeker and helped build some of the houses in town. And my mom was primarily a homemaker, but she did do professional baking, baked wedding cakes and special occasion, cakes.
Did any of that transfer to you of enjoying baking?
Yes, yeah, and I still try my hand at cake decorating. Never to her level, but we made all of our wedding cakes and our family and whatnot. So, and then she also had an egg route. Her family, the Welch family, had an egg route for about 50 years in Terre Haute, and so till I was about the end of elementary school, she would go to Terre Haute once a week, and we would go with her and during the summers and school holidays and deliver eggs, carry our eggs around to the businesses and homes. And
You never broke one, did you?
I hope not. I'm sure we did, but it was always a fun experience doing that. So, I have one brother, Vic. He is 2.5 years older than I am, and he still lives in Marshall here today and lives on our family farm. So during school, I was active in lots. I played piano all through school. Took piano lessons off of Mrs. Tarman and Susan Ferris a little bit. Was in band, very active in 4-H, really active in church youth group. And I always think those are always such fun things, but the adults who help with each of those things have such an impact on who you are. And
Well, the point about 4-H, did you specialize in farm animals, with cooking or sewing or?
So when I was in 4-H, there were ag clubs and there were home ec clubs. And my brother and I were in an ag club, AMA, and so had pigs that we showed through that. And then after he'd been in 4-H for a while and was no longer in, then I stuck with being in a home ec. And that's really where I love to sew. I sewed all 11 years. I baked, I did flower arranging, did a lot
With
of
all
those
the
things.
animals you had, primarily pigs, did you avoid ham when it came to eating?
No, that's just part of farm life. So, but just, a lot of wonderful experiences growing up here in Clark County.
Do you remember some of your early teachers?
I think I remember them all, yeah. I had Mrs. Conemacher for kindergarten at the Ohio building. And then Mrs. Fetters was my first grade teacher, and Miss Friedenberger was my second grade, and Ann Kyle was my third grade. Miss Bubeck was my fourth grade. Mrs. Heck was my fifth grade, and Mr. Grubb was my sixth grade teacher. So those are some fine teachers that I had. So.
And what school were you in then?
I went to South School.
South School?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, went to South School all 6 years, and then 7 years. No, 6, because I went to the Ohio building. And then to the junior high and high school. So.
What was your favorite subject in high school?
Probably home ec. That's the class. That's what I chose to go into as my major when I went to college, and so very much enjoyed those classes. also, I took Latin for 4 years, and so I had Mrs. McNary, and so that brings back a lot of memories. Most of them good. So
Just to reverse, is there a subject that you just did not like?
oh, Dan swears that I never took geography. So if I took geography, I must not remember it well. And science classes probably were my least favorite, I would say. But yeah. So after I graduated from high school, I went to Eastern and decided to major in fashion merchandising because I did a lot of sewing, kind of styled my own clothes. Just thought that would be a fun career. But the more I thought about it, I thought retail would involve a lot of nights and weekends, and thought, I'm not sure that's what I want to do. So I went into home ec education, and really never with the full intention of teaching, but to do some alternative educational things like being a home economist for a company or grocery store or something like that. And ended up after college interviewing with University of Illinois Extension. And I always said I would never be an extension advisor because they worked too many nights and weekends. And they certainly did, but it was well worth it. So that was my career for 35 years. So I started in Crawford County, and I was the youth advisor down there for 2 years, and then finished out my 35 years in Clark County.
Do you ever look back and say, oh, I wish I had done something else as far as a career or anything?
Not really.
Okay,
Good.
good.
Yeah, it was a great career. So maybe there's things I would have done more hobby-wise or travel more, those kind of things. But no, it was always one that you were continually growing. You worked with different kids all the time, different volunteers, and just such great people. So no, it was an awesome career.
Looking back, is there anything that really strikes out that was the most rewarding or the most favorite thing I did?
Oh, that list would be long, but one thing that always comes to my mind is it was always so fun to see like a first year 4-H or an 8-year-old get up and do their 4-H talk. And then as opposed to a teacher who typically just has a kid 1 year, I really had those kids for 10 or 11 years. And so just getting to watch them progress, and then so many of them have become great leaders in our community or in their jobs. So that's one of the favorites. And probably my favorite part of working with 4-H was working with high school kids in our high school federation that we met monthly, and they had great capabilities and were fun, and just a lot for them to gain and to me as gain as well.
So what year did you retire, Jess?
I think I retired in 2019, so I've been retired 5 years. So
Okay.
yeah.
The time now retired, can you look back and say, well, I might like to go back and help with something?
And I do.
I kind of thought you
Yeah. So I almost always help at the fair. I've judged public speaking. I've helped with different workshops. So I've kind of done a little variety of things with that. And more with 4-H, as part of my youth development job at the Extension office, I also was really involved with the Marshall Area Youth Network. And we just celebrated 30 years of that program, which really is remarkable for it to be, just a homegrown program without any, starting without any state or federal funds. And so I took a break from that about a year when I retired, and then got back involved. And so really I'm enjoying working with it again and with the Marshall leadership team. Dan and I are both really involved with that group.
kind of in the 4-H program, the ones that have to make presentations and all, is that directed or managed by someone to have some training in that teaching?
So it varies a lot by club, and so those experiences are all happen at the club level to begin with, and so probably another great thing about 4-H is is that those first year 4-Hers, they're in the same club as the completing 4-Hers. And so they're learning from them. So they're, every year they're gaining by listening to other people give their speech. And then I'm sure a lot of leaders will do a little formal feedback to them on that.
The reason I ask that is because in any interview I've ever done in our Rotary, we interview the applicants for scholarships. You can almost tell, or at least I can, those that have been in 4-H.
Yes, I agree. It gives them the opportunity and it gives them a confidence that other kids
Expressing themselves so much better.
Yeah, so I just can't say enough good things about 4-H and what it does for young people. So we're very lucky to have the strong 4-H program that we have here in Clark County.
And I know what your background was in music as maybe a hobby, maybe not a hobby, but do you still keep that as a activity?
Very much so, yes. I play at our church. I go to Zion Church and play regularly there and play for the choir. And so I do very much enjoy music. So
Have you ever written any?
I haven't, no. I never have been good at improving. So the kids, they, especially all three of the kids took piano lessons, and I'm good at reading, and Emily is good at chording and improvising, and I know chords. I try to do a little bit of that, but it's not natural to me.
I always needed some notes up there to read.
Yeah, me too.
So after school, college, you graduated, and
Yes.
what happened then? After you
Yeah.
worked for a while, but did something happen in the meantime?
I did get, Dan and I met at Eastern. So I married Dan Cruz, who grew up, both sides of his family are from Florida, but he grew up in Calumet City, Illinois.
Oh,
And so he came to Eastern, and we met there through a mutual friend. And so we got married in 1986, and we both were able to find jobs in this area, and so he has been a very faithful lover of Marshall. It's been a great fit for
he's
him.
been active, I know. What did he major in school, do you recall?
Communications and journalism. Yeah. And then we both were able to go back and get our masters, and I got mine in home ec ed, and he got his in history, which is really his passion. So that was fun for him to be able to do. He worked at Eastern Illinois University for, I think, about almost 30 years, and he retired 2 years after I did, or 2 years ago. So
are you finding things active to do in your retirement and Dan's retirement?
very much so, yes. I keep busy with, we both substitute teach a little bit, so that keeps us in the schools and able to know the kids, and we both really enjoy that. And Dan's still on school board, and we both work with the Marshall Leadership Team, which is a pretty high level of involvement. The programs that they do are monthly, and so we very much enjoy that. I cuddle babies at Union Hospital once or twice a month, so that's fun. And help with 100 Women and church things. And we rarely have a day that we don't have. Dan also works at Knowles's. He has a radio show. We try to do Travel Tuesdays, so just when we get in the car and take off and go someplace. And so when we both retired, that's something that we set out to do. But now we have our first grandbaby, Jane, and that's something I haven't said. We have 3 children. We have Nathan, who is 34, and he's in his 2nd year of teaching here at Marshall High School, and is married to Allie, and they just have a new baby, our first grandbaby, Jane, and so we are keeping her 2 days a week. And so
That takes care of those, doesn't it?
that's been very fun for us. And then our son Landon is in Chicago, and he works for consulting agency up there, and married to his wife Katie, and they live in the Lincoln Park area, and just very much enjoy what they're doing for now. And then she works at the University of Chicago, and then Emily, our youngest, is just turned 28, and she lives in Nashville and works for the big loud music business. And so she is a day-to-day manager for kind of an up-and-coming artist named Ashley Cook, who a lot of people recognize her name, but she's on the road probably 70% of the time with her. So that's a fun thing for her to be doing. She loves it. This time period in her life. They went to Europe last year. They're going to spend some time in Canada next month. They're going to go to Australia for several weeks. So it's just, she's always been an organizer, and that's kind of what she's always had a deep love for music. And so it's a perfect job for bringing all that together. So
Does she
play the piano? She does.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Probably not as much as she should or could, but she still does.
When you get out in the business world, though, there's less and not as interest. There's too many other things.
Yes.
Sometimes to keep music going.
Yes. But she does love music, that's for sure.
Your son that lives in Chicago, does he ever feel, I guess, uncomfortable with all the things that are happening in the cities now?
I think he would probably say that events catch his attention, that they've always felt very comfortable where they live and safe. Until maybe somewhat recently, there's been more of the carjackings and things like that. But I don't think it's something that they dwell on. For the most part, they feel safe. But in the back of your mind, you can't help
Lincoln
it.
Park area has usually always been a pretty safe, very safe area.
Yeah. So.
But having lived there in that area at one time, I'm glad I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. They have both went to U of I, and a lot of their friends from U of I are in their neighborhood, so they have a very large social circle that they still keep in contact with, and so it's still a great match for them at this point. So
Now, did Nathan just recently purchase a home?
he did, yes. He
Heard that.
yeah, is his dream home, I would say. On North 7th Street, I think it's 508 North 8th Street, and
I think it's on 7th.
or 7th, I'm sorry, North 7th Street, yeah.
We used to live just 2 doors.
Yes, and it's been for sale several times recently, and every time it's just been almost a period of mourning for him, and it was a big undertaking, but once somebody buys it for their forever home, it might not ever be available again. And so they are just very excited to be there. He's a local history lover and a book lover, so the library is already, overfilled with books there, and it'll be a great place for them.
Well, I'm so glad too, because when we moved in that area, we were all older and became older, and it was literally an area of retirement. And now then, it's so many young new families.
Yes.
So the whole environment has changed greatly.
Yeah, I think Jane will have a great time growing up on 7th Street. So.
You said something about you do some teaching now. Do you find there's quite a change in education, schools, attitudes, and all of the students?
I do. Probably one of my pet peeves in life is people just, talking badly about young people. And I just think there are so many good young people in our community, And student teaching confirms that. I mean, Dan and I both always have great experiences student teaching. And in all honesty, I think that the behavior is 100% better in the classroom than it was when I went through school.
Really?
Absolutely. I would absolutely say that. Now, there's different kinds of issues, but I think people tend to forget the issues when they were teenagers and things that were going on. So we just have great kids in our high school. What's changed is when it's really pretty easy to sub because the teachers can put their assignments all on the Google Class. And so the kids just are able to look up their assignments, come in and know. So we don't actually have to we do very little teaching when we sub. We're in to mainly take attendance, monitor, keep their interest up. But it's, I don't know, they're great kids.
Do they allow cell phones in the classroom here?
Their policy right now is no. That when you go in the door of the classroom, they can have them in the hallway, but when you go in the classroom, there's a little thing with pockets, and you put your phone in the pockets.
Right.
So, and that's been the policy for a long time, and then the longer it goes, it kind of will get softened up, and teachers will soften up a little bit on it. But I think again last year they really made a kick to say we're tightening up on this again. So,
Because I've heard that's still a problem in some schools.
yeah. Well, it just doesn't. The kids are on their phone instead of communicating with each other, which is a loss for them. But
Quite different than when we were in
yes,
school, right?
yeah, definitely.
Does the, I guess the attitude of the students towards, should I say, discipline, is that maybe a less problem or more problem?
Unless my memory is wrong, it's less of a problem. I remember fights in the cafeteria. I remember, so much public display of affection in the hallways. All the pranks that went on. And I honestly just feel like you don't. There's a fight every year. So, I'm not saying there's never that stuff. And maybe it's happening not on school grounds as much. And I'm sure Mr. Ritchie and Cal would probably say I have a rosy view of the world because I'm sure that they probably see a handle with a lot. But just from the atmosphere of walking into the school and spending a day there, it's a very positive place. We have a great administration and great teachers. And
Fortunately, they don't have a budget problem and all the other fiascos that happen in a lot of schools.
yeah.
How about smoking?
Smoking is down immensely everywhere, but the vaping is, I know vaping is a problem, and I know they have to monitor that. I don't know if it's, again, I would say some fewer kids smoke today than smoked when I was in high school, but probably what they're smoking, not to me, I was never a smoker, but what they're smoking might be worse than the cigarettes. But who can afford to smoke is what I want to know,
Prices are going outlandish.
So I don't see a lot of the vaping, but I'm sure that that's happening. And I'm sure there's drugs in school that are kept, but I'm just saying the overall tone of the school is a positive one. So
You mentioned I think Travel Tuesdays, what you called it. Where's your favorite place to go, or place you go back to quite often?
Oh, we like going up to Arthur and Arcola. We go to Indianapolis fairly often, but Sullivan, Indiana, or Washington, Indiana. We hit smaller towns pretty regularly. Bloomington, Indiana is a fun place, or Nashville, Indiana. Just any place that's a pretty drive. And I'll tell you what that has really shown Dan and I is what a lovely downtown Marshall has. There are very, very few towns that have a downtown like us. So it's eye-opening in that way, but it's just a very fun thing to do. So
Have you traveled abroad in any place? I know Dan has.
yeah, we have. gone 3 times. Went each. Landon and Emily both studied abroad, and so we went and visited them. Emily was in Austria, and then we went on to Budapest and down in Italy. And Landon was in Germany, so we went to Germany and then up through the Alps and up to, where else did we go? Up through a couple more countries. And then this past spring, we got to go to Ireland and Scotland and England. So
Fascinating places.
yeah, most of my family roots are from Scotland and England. So we looked up a place or two. Yeah.
Any family there now?
I don't know because it's so many generations back. But we went to the town where my grandmother's last name was English, and the last English that lived in England was from Nailsworth before they came over and eventually made their way to Clark County. And so we went to Nailsworth this spring. And so we weren't there long enough to look up and see if there were...
Researching genealogy.
But yeah, it was fun.
So of those places, do you have a favorite place that you visited?
I love the sound of music. Austria, that was my one thing I really wanted to do. Loved.
Were you in Vienna then?
Yes, we were. When we took the Sound of Music tour, up to the church and whatnot. Really loved Italy. We were in the Florence area and then kind of up in the mountains there. Really enjoyed that. And then Scotland, we didn't get to spend much time there, but that just really hit a chord with me. Scotland, I really, really enjoyed it. So.
You didn't buy any kilts then, huh?
Yes.
Oh, did you?
Not me, but one member of our family did come home with a kilt. So I'll let you guess what member of the family that was. So.
That's always kind of a touchy spot for some people.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's worn it a time or two, so.
Does I guess maybe in your education and all, did you study a foreign language? You mentioned Latin.
Yeah, I took 4 years of Latin, so I didn't have to take any additional foreign languages in college. So
have you had any issues in trying to communicate in these travels?
Honestly, technology has made that so improved. The place that we stayed outside of Florence, it was just a kind of a farm where we ended up staying, and the grandfather of the house was like 100 years old, and it was an olive tree farm, and he had to call his grandson at school to talk to us. They got him out of class, and he came and talked to us, but most of the time we could put it on Google Translate and get things.
Those are fun experiences.
Yes.
In all of our travels, we have really found just about every place there's someone you can find
Yes.
that speaks English.
Yeah.
So do you plan in your retirement to do more outside the United States travel?
I've been to 47 states, and so Dana and I both need Delaware. We don't know how we've missed Delaware. And then haven't been to Alaska and Hawaii. So those would probably be, I know those are in the United States, but...
Probably won't drive to those
yes.
two places, but you could drive to Alaska.
So those are on the bucket list, and I'm sure we'd like to travel abroad again. We also spent something fun we did in our retirement. There's a program at Yellowstone that's called the Helping Hands program, and so we spent 5 weeks out there. You stay in their dorms, and you provide you with food, and you help get the hotels open. So we were at the Lake Hotel, and when we went, we unlocked the gates when we would go in and out. There were very few people there, and so we were there for the 5 weeks and just watched Yellowstone come alive during the spring, and it was an awesome experience.
Did you encounter any of the buffaloes?
Oh, tons. There was 2 that walked around our little village where we were living frequently, but you definitely respected all the wildlife. So
When we were there the week before, the guy said that some folks were staying in the lodge right with the old faithful. And they went out one morning and there was a buffalo laying in the parking lot. This guy was wanting to take pictures, so he got closer and closer and closer. The buffalo just looked at him, so finally he had the wisdom to kick the buffalo in the rear, which came up immediately and started goring him and trampling him. I guess he had to lifeline him out of the park.
yeah,
But I just thought, that doesn't take many brains
Yeah.
to figure that one out.
yeah, I think somebody being gored there was one gored. Actually, of those two buffaloes, surely one of those two was one that gored somebody a week or two after we left. But yeah, it's just, we saw so many buffalo and quite a few bear, some coyotes, not a lot of wolves, but some wolves. So it was just a wonderful experience. So
Do you think you'd like to move to the west somewhere?
I'm pretty bound to Marshall. So
Good.
I think I'd enjoy traveling short term, and then always ended up back here.
Do you have any pets or anything at home?
We have one dog, Jessie, and she's
I wonder with your travels and activities if you had a pet.
somebody comes and takes care of her while we're gone. But she is, let's see, got her in 2008, so she is like 17 years old, 17 or 18. So she's pretty low key.
What kind of dog is it?
Mutt. She has a lot
Best
of,
kind?
yeah, she has a lot of lab in her, but not a full-blooded lab. So,
Not exactly then a tiny lap dog.
no, she's not. She's a bigger dog.
In your, I guess, future planning and all, do you plan to visit exotic places like Antarctica or?
Well, I didn't mention, we did go to Israel too. And
Good thing you went when you did.
we did. We were almost in the first group that went after COVID. And everybody was they just needed travelers so badly for their economy. So people were so grateful, to see it. We had a wonderful trip. But on all of our other trips, we have planned them, and made all of our own plans, except for the Israel trip. And if we ever went anyplace exotic, I would very much want to do a tour where somebody that knew what they were doing was leading the charge. So,
Friends of ours went to Israel a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And I think things kind of fell apart soon after that. But they've said, oh my gosh, thank goodness
yeah,
they did it when they did.
yeah, it was a wonderful trip. Very, very nice trip. So,
In the trip to Italy that you mentioned, did you find architecture in the buildings there fascinating?
very much so. We went to Venice. Didn't get to spend a lot of time there, but that in itself is just, to me, it almost feels like once you cross over onto the island of Venice, like you've stepped into Disney World. It's like, this can't be real, like real people can't live here. These people all have to be in costume or something. But yes, that was
You
neat.
took a gondola ride, I'm sure.
We did, yeah. And then in Florence, there's a basilica there, right? I think, I can remember green. I'm sure there's a green basilica. Yes, the architecture there was beautiful. And then we spent several days in Rome, and just the ruins, and, to think that, we walked where Jesus walked, or where Paul and Silas were in jail. Just those places are still marked and, significant. So it just makes you feel, sometime when we come back and talk about our history of a couple 100 years, that we really don't see the big picture.
We went to a church outside of Florence, and the cornerstone said, I think 12 something AD, still in use.
Yeah. We actually were there on the Good Friday, and so the Pope, we got to see the Pope speak. They did the Stations of the Cross, and so we, did that walk, and then ended up at where he was speaking. And it was a very large crowd. It was a wonderful experience.
When we were there, he came through with Pope Mobile through the plaza there in front, and people, of course, were taking pictures, and we had a ringside seat. And I had the video camera, my wife had her still camera, and just as she was ready to take his picture, the lady in front waved a big flag.
Oh,
So that one didn't come out too well. Do you have a, I guess, a garden or anything? You mentioned something about your interest in cooking and all.
Yeah, not much. We always had a big garden growing up, but I have a cattle trough garden. So just enough for a couple tomato plants and a couple cucumbers and whatnot. But I put my green energy more into flowers. I really enjoy growing flowers.
You have a particular kind?
Well, I'm trying to. We have so much shade at our house that I'm really limited of perennials that I can plant and have enough shade. So I love hydrangeas, and so that's what I'm trying to find spots for. But yeah, I have lots of favorites. So
I guess in looking ahead to the future and with your family, do you have reunions once in a while?
Growing up, all four sides of my family had reunions annually, and they have all fallen off. But my Tingley cousins, I think we had our third reunion a couple weeks ago. So we have started, narrowed the focus of the people coming, I guess, and have started meeting again. So that's been great. And then we're kind of the hoster of the Christmas and, family, some of the family events on one side. So it's super important to me that our kids are around their cousins and extended cousins, because those are just such lifelong friends, to maintain.
It seems like so many families though today, they're so spread out, and everyone gets so busy and all that not very many family reunions have lasted very long, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. So and actually it was a couple of the younger ones that put our Tingley reunion together. So I was proud of them for that. For
You haven't been nominated for that?
I haven't. They're doing a good job.
It's a lot of fun, but a lot of work.
Yeah.
Does and I know Dan has been, didn't he go to Normandy and all with?
He did.
Does that hold any interest of you? I know his was kind of specialized in the war.
Yeah, definitely. I would enjoy going. The times that he has gone over have all been times in our life where it would have been very difficult for both of us to be away, with kids active in everything, and our parents were older, and so they were just great opportunities for him to go and be able and enjoy that. So that's definitely something that is on our bucket list for me to go and be able to see some of those things as well. But just the timing that it just worked best for him to take advantage of those opportunities. So
it sounds like you plan to stay in Marshall and retire in Marshall somewhere. You've already retired, but
yes,
to cool it down and stay here.
Yep.
Good.
So.
Well, Jessie, it's been a great visiting with you.
Oh, thank you.
And I think you filled in a lot of things with family and all that is going to be part of future history.
Well,
and your kids can listen to that and come back and say, I didn't know that about Mom.
Yeah. One thing I didn't say, or I don't believe I did, that I think all four of my grandparents' families have been in the Marshall area since the early 1800s to the early 1850s. So a lot of history here, and the kids really enjoy, digging that stuff up too. And
have you actually, I guess you'd say, written down any of the genealogy?
Very much so. During COVID, our middle son Landon, that was kind of his project. He did a lot of genealogy. We already have some really nice genealogy that my mom and her brother, Bob Welch, did on two sides of our family. But Landon has done a lot with FamilySearch.org, and it is just unbelievable,
Takes a lot of effort,
but the information that is so accessible.
you have to look under a lot of rocks.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like they have a good family tree filled out.
Did they get into going to Ireland or to Salt Lake City for any of them?
No, but that's all online now, so there's not that need, although I do have family in Salt Lake that I visited them, but there's never enough time, never have time to do everything, so.
Well, Jessie, I've been asking a lot of questions of you too. Are there things that you would like to tell us about? I thought maybe you had a whole epistle there.
No, I guess the only thing I would say is that I think I am just so proud of Marshall right now. As I said, when we do our Travel Tuesdays, there just aren't many communities that look like ours. And, even when you look back at old pictures of Marshall has never looked better. It looks better right now than it did. The buildings never were painted, groomed this well. And so just, what a compliment to those people so many people are currently investing in these buildings, and there's so many projects happening on our main street and around the square that you just can't help but be proud. And
old buildings and old houses take more than you expect.
Yeah, and their efforts are paying off. They just look well, and our farmers markets and Friday nights that the Chamber and Norris Falls are doing are just.
Band concerts are a unique thing too.
That whole Friday night evening is just, I think will make Marshall a marker for Friday nights with all those things happening. And so.
You look back at some pictures you mentioned of the 20s, 30s, and even 40s. The awnings were shabby and the street looks like there was some junk in it.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate.
Yeah. So shout out to our merchants in our city for, helping support and fund a lot of those things. But I think that's.
You remember some of the businesses that were active when you were young?
My mom never had a washer and dryer at home because we were on well water most of the time. Later we got city water, but so she would always come on Saturday afternoons and do a little load of laundry. And when she would do that, my best friend was Joyce Murphy.
Okay.
And we would come up with her and we would go in every store downtown while she did her laundry. So we'd go in the dime store, we'd go get our orange pineapple ice cream cone at Martin's. We'd go over to the candle shop, which is kind of a hallmark, and we'd just go in at Jerry's and look at every piece of jewelry, and talk to him. And so I do have a lot of fond memories of we'd go in Fink Binders and look at the clothes, and so yeah, it was.
It would be nice to have some of those back, but
Yeah.
we're going to, but at least the space is well occupied.
Yes.
Now in most of the buildings,
Yes.
there's some vacancies.
So,
do you think of anything that Marshall should, quote, change or do differently?
I mean, there's always room for improvement, that's for sure. But I feel like the community, if there's a need, there's usually somebody that fills it, or there's a good reason why it hasn't come to fruition. So if it's going to be awesome to have a community YMCA or whatever, but just the amount of money that it takes to support that has probably not been feasible at this point in time. So there's nothing that I can really think. There's little things that I think, we started with the farmers market that Dana and I work with the community to organize the Friday night historical walking tours. And so that's something where just after I retired, I remember somebody saying, you know, when you hear something that needs to be done, sometimes you just need to step up and do it. And so that's the way I felt with that. And so I guess if there's anything that I wish would change, I wish that people would just, you know, see a need and grasp onto it and take it as their own project and not wait for somebody else to do it, because there's always a lot of great things that can be done. Always room for improvement.
Just been a delight talking to you.
Oh, well,
I
thank
guess
you.
I'll just wind up with one question. When you were in Florence,
Mm-hmm.
and someone said to you, Marshall, Illinois, ooh, where's that and what's that all about? What would you say?
Let's see. We actually were in Edinburgh, and we were on a little tour, and the tour guy said, describe one word, or use one word to describe your state. And so corn was the word that I came up with for that. But Emily, just her group that she tours with, they had a show in Ohio and then a show in Iowa. And so they needed someplace to have a leisurely day. And so they came to Marshall for a day and just spent time here and drove around town a little bit and whatnot. And when they left, they said, because Emily and Landon both love Marshall, even though they can't live here, they love Marshall. And so after they left, her coworkers were like, we can see why you love that town. And so I just to say there's something special about this town. I don't know, I can put my finger on what it is, but definitely the people and it's a town that has leadership and people that are willing to invest their time and energy to make it a better place. And so
Kind of has a little magnetism there.
it absolutely does. And I feel like we rarely travel. The in-laws get so tickled because we hardly ever travel someplace where we don't cross somebody or something with a Marshall connection. And they're just like, oh my word, you know. So,
We've had that a few times in our travels too.
Yes.
It's always nice to hear about.
yes.
Well, thank you so much, and we're glad to have you participate in our
Well,
program.
thank you. Yes, well, it was an honor to be asked.
Well, thank
So,
you.
okay.
You mentioned a couple things there that I had a relationship to. It was in Scotland, and of course they talk with such a brogue or dialect, whatever you want to call it. And our guide, we were on